I'm going to talk about innovation in the gas industry. And you might say, well, they're not always obvious bedfellows, but I'm going to hopefully demonstrate today why it's so important to us. And it's critically important to us because what we do basically is we find oil and gas, we appraise those fields, we then develop them, and then ultimately we produce them over a long period of time. And we have to do that both sustainably, we have to do it safely, and we have to do it in a way that actually drives the wealth creation that we envisioned when we started in the investment period. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of how we've progressed over the last 50 years. And I'm going to start with this map. Now, it's probably not obvious what this is, but this is a map, the very first map, that was drawn in 1957 by Professor Heli Wapner of the Cooper Basin, which is right in the very heart of Australia. The areas you would know well would be in Iminka. So that's right in the heart. And the way he drew that map is he drew that map by flying a Stoll aircraft, which they brought from Europe, using his altimeter on a reading with a little pad of paper in front of him. And him and his co-pilot flew many, many lines and just reading the altimeter off. And from that, they drew that map. And then in 1963, not long after, 5, 6 years after, we discovered the Gidji-Alpha-2 well. It produced gas, and that unlocked the Cooper Basin. And that has been producing gas now for the last 40 years, and it's basically powered Eastern Australia. Now, I've now superposed that map onto a map that's provided by Geoscience Australia of the whole of Australia. And if you look closely, you see that map is actually a perfect fit. So despite the technology of the day, and that was the best we could do, we're now using today's technology and overlaying them. And you can see that it fits perfectly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from what we did in the Cooper Basin in 1957, using the best technology then. I'm going to move to Western Australia. And I'm talking about a well which we drilled this year. It was one of our biggest and most challenging wells that my company has ever drilled and operated. It was 250 miles off Broome, nautical miles off Broome. It's in 400 meters of water. And we drilled it to a depth of 5,300 meters. What you're seeing now is we've gone from the map now to the actual formation of Western Australia, and we're using a huge seismic data set here. This is for real. There's a huge seismic data set that's being rotated, and we're now looking for subsurface anomalies. And you see one just there, just being highlighted. That, in fact, is potentially an old coral reef. We need to avoid that, because if we drill into those things, they might contain gas, and we don't want to find shallow gas, which is often biogenic. It's not helpful. So what we want to find is the gas resources as we move further down the wellbore. So what we're doing now is we're moving down the wellbore, deeper and deeper and deeper below the Earth's surface, until we get to the formations which contain the gas. And all of this is done by our geologists and our geoscientists who map these fields using the latest seismic technology. And it's processed on very, very large computers. And this data set you're seeing here is being manipulated on a very large computer. And we're now down at 5,300 meters. That's the map. And then we drill through the top of the formation. And in this particular case, we found 400 meters of gas column, about 80 meters of really good rock. And it contains probably enough gas to power Australia for maybe 5 to 10 years, the whole of Australia in this one field. We're now coming back out of that particular field and looking at the whole of Western Australia. And then we can move back to Heli Wapner's area, where that first map was done. And what I now want to do is I want to show you the power of this technology. And I want to do that. And this is a technology that was developed by Santos, by the IT department, which allows us to manipulate that data set using my mobile phone. So this is my mobile phone. If I can switch it on, hopefully I can. What I can now do, I now have the data set on the mobile phone, and I can now rotate the whole data set of Australia, if I get this right, on this phone. So just have a wee look at this. So what we can do is we can start to think about, tilt Australia. That's a bit of fun, isn't it? Oh, look at that. Now we're tilting Australia. But actually, we can do something even more remarkable. We can do something that nobody's ever done before on this mobile phone. And that we can actually have a look underneath. So what we're doing now is we're having a look underneath Australia. So you're now seeing Australia from the underside. And as you say, it also doesn't look dramatically different. But what it shows is that using this turbo VNC technology, which the team developed, what it's given us is the ability, rather than have to have supercomputers in all our offices, super expensive. If you're in Dhaka or if you're in Ho Chi Minh or wherever, Singapore, you can manipulate this data set now using just basically a dumb terminal. You can come over effectively the internet, and you can use the technology to allow you to play with this. That's driven a huge amount of efficiencies. It's also driven the ability for many, many people to collaborate on the same mega data set at the same time. So now I should put this away, otherwise I'll foul things up. Now, what you're actually seeing now is the wells of the Cooper Basin that are actually on the map. And we're looking underneath again. We're now going back up above. And what we're going to do is we're going to switch those wells off, and we're going to just focus on one well. The well we're going to focus on is a very important well for us. It's one we've drilled this year, just like the Lassiter well. If we're going to unlock the future reserves and resources of this country, we've got to go into more and more difficult, more and more challenging rocks. The rock we're going into here is shale. So what we're doing now is we're drilling down through the Cooper Basin. This is actual data. And we're drilling a well that's 3,200 meters, so 3.2 kilometers deep, all the way down. And then we're turning a corner, quite sharply, in fact, and we're going horizontal. Now, in this well, we went 500 meters horizontal. This is all to scale, real data. We went 500 meters horizontal, and we went along in the shale formation. We can drill with an accuracy of about half a meter at 3.2 kilometers deep. We have to do that because we want to stay in seam. So we want to stay in the best seam. So this technology is very sophisticated. It's been developed over the last 50 years, and it allows us to do this. Subsequent to this well, we've drilled another well, which is twice the horizontal length. Companies who are absolutely at the cutting edge will drill wells that are 3 times this length, 4 times this length, and go up to 3,000 meters horizontal. And they'll try right the way through this to stay in the seam. Now, what we then do, of course, when we get down, this is very hard rock. This is shale. So it's pure shale, almost like you've put on your roof if you want old-fashioned roofing slates. And what we're now doing is we're the next process, which we're opening up fractures in the shale. And we're fracturing the rock. And this is actually the rock being fractured. And what we're monitoring this by, because we have another wellbore nearby, and we've run geophones into that wellbore, and we're now actually monitoring that frac taking place. Now, these are very big fracs. We're pumping sand, or we call it proppant, but basically it's sand. And it's special sand because it's quite incompressible. And as you watch these fracs go, we're pumping the sand in, and it's moving away from the wellbore, sometimes moving up as well. And that's opening up fractures in the rock. The rock, we then take the pressure off, the rock closes, and you're left with fractures that are anything from half a centimeter to a few sand grains wide. And then through that, the gas flows, hopefully, if we've got this right. And that, of course, is what's unlocked the gas revolution in North America, has been that fracking technology. So this technology is really applying, and we'll apply it more and more in Australia as we go forward, to seek to unlock the original resources that Heli mapped on that map. And by doing so, I think we should be able to power Australia for another 40 or so years. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to talk about the final little vignette of this morning. And that's, we're moving from our conventional fields, now we're going to go to Gladstone, where we're building a very, very large LNG plant. Now, LNG is just liquid natural gas. The unique thing about this is this plant is being driven, or its fuel source is gas that's sourced from gas that comes from coal seams. So these are coal seams in northern Queensland, Surat and Bowen coal seams. We gather the gas, we pump it, and we bring it to the LNG plant. And this is the LNG plant that we're building right now. We're about 1 year away from producing our first cargo, maybe a bit less, hopefully. And the way we built this was in modules. We built each module in the Philippines, in Batangas. We brought the modules to the island, and then we put it together like an absolute gigantic Lego set. Each of these modules weighs 2,500 tons, very, very large, and they're designed and built to about 2 millimeters of tolerance. They're put on their plinths, and then hopefully they line up. I say we've done 111 of these, and so far so good, and that's the last one. They're all on the island, so it's fantastic. This is the cold box where the heat exchanging takes place. Because what we want to do is we want to get the gas down to minus 161 centigrade. That temperature becomes a liquid, and then we can literally pour it onto a ship. And all of this kit you see here is driven by GE aeroderivatives and also by GE compressors. The GE compressors are very like the compressors you have in the back of your own fridge. It's a gigantic fridge. But the only difference is they're about the size of a big truck. And they're attached onto these aeroderivatives. And we store the LNG at atmospheric pressure in these gigantic tanks. And these tanks are truly gigantic. And they're lined with chrome nickel steel, multiple vessels, but they're basically cups. And the LNG is poured into these cups, stored in these cups at very cold temperatures. It's not under pressure, it's at atmospheric pressure. And there's enough energy in one of those tanks to fill about 2.5 million gasoline tanks if you ever wanted to do that in an energy equivalent term. So there's a lot of energy stored, but it's all very, very cold energy. And then what we do, having filled those tanks up, every 3 or 4 days we'll bring a ship. And you literally just pump the LNG in a liquid form onto the ship, export it, in our case, to Korea and to Malaysia. And we will provide 10% of the Malaysian Peninsula's gas needs and 10% of the Korean Peninsula's gas needs. And we will probably do that for certainly 20 years, because that's the contract I've signed, but it may well be 40 or 50 years, depending upon our resource base here in Australia. So ultimately, what I wanted to show to you, how in the gas industry, we're using technology, some of that GE technology, to unlock our resources, to bring them to market. We're passionate about doing it sustainably. We're passionate about doing it safely. And also by doing so, we want to drive the wealth of Australia and also, of course, provide for the growing energy needs of Asia. And one of the extraordinary things about gas is that it does have a lower carbon footprint. And if you look in North America right now, and we all know about the gas revolution that's taken place in North America, and it is truly extraordinary. Had that revolution not taken place, then it's commonly understood that America's carbon emissions would have been about 200 million tons higher than they are today. And the reason they're lower in North America and coming down is because there's been a substitution of the fuel mix from coal to gas, and that substitution has had a massive impact. So gas, I believe, is really part of the solution if we can go forward, provided we can do it in a socially responsible manner, provided we can do it safely, and I believe we can. And by using technology, I really believe that we can unlock the resources of this great country. We can provide them to deliver to market here in Australia, but we can also deliver them to market in Asia through our LNG plants. Thank you very much.